Welcome to Civics and Coffee. My name is Alicia, and I am a self-professed history nerd. Each week, I'm going to chat about a topic on U.S. history and give you both the highlights and occasionally break down some of the complexities in history and share stories you may not remember learning in high school, all in the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. Hey everybody, welcome back. Before we begin, I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's taken a chance on this little podcast of mine. I super appreciate all of you. I'm still figuring out all this fancy stuff, but I do know you can follow Civics and Coffee on the Instagram at Civics and Coffee, all one word. And if Facebook is your thing, look for the podcast page, Civics and Coffee. I'm trying to do episode hints and drop random historical facts throughout the week. And of course, I always want to hear from you, so go check it out. This episode, I'm going to chat about an event I think highlights one of the major themes of colonial history, Bacon's Rebellion. And no, this isn't about rallying against Bacon, so for those of you who love it, you can take a deep sigh of relief. The earliest days of the colonies were filled with both massive expansion efforts and major conflict. The expansion push coming from the newly arrived European migrants trying to build their fortunes, and the resulting conflict from the indigenous Americans who, seeing their land under assault, battled to protect their borders. As more colonists arrived on the shores of Virginia, Massachusetts, and New York, land was harder and harder to find, forcing new arrivals to move further inland for opportunities. And as I mentioned in episode 1, America was not this vast and open landscape. There were millions of already settled individuals who were now being forced to either fight for their land or migrate elsewhere. This led to escalating tensions and helped bring about the conflict known as Bacon's Rebellion. So, what exactly is Bacon's Rebellion? Who started it? And why do historians care? Grab your cup of coffee, peeps. Let's do this. The reasons for this rebellion are numerous, including a combination of frustration with the presiding colonial government, excessive taxes, and inadequate protection for those on the frontier against the surrounding native tribes. But ultimately, it came down to a battle between two dudes, an aging governor grasping for control, and a young, frustrated aristocrat yearning to make his mark. The rebellion itself was short, lasting only a few months, and was led by a plantation owner by the name of Nathaniel Bacon. Many historians view the rebellion as a precursor to the American Revolution, citing the similar themes of anti-government sentiment and declaration of grievances found in both Bacon's Declaration of the People and the Declaration of Independence, written in 1776. After somewhat shaky beginnings in 1619, Jamestown grew to be a thriving colony with a desirable cash crop, tobacco, leading the king to declare the Virginia settlement a royal colony in 1625. As the demand for the crop, and the land required to farm it, grew, so did the tensions with the local inhabitants such as the Doeg and Petawomic tribes. While there were sporadic skirmishes along the frontiers of the colonies, Bacon's Rebellion is the first full-scale revolt in the name of anti-tribal sentiments. A lot of the initial conflicts between the colonists and tribesmen were minor. The colonists knew they were outnumbered and in an unfamiliar territory and relied on smaller, more brutal attacks, such as taking the scalps of tribesmen to invoke fear, getting upwards of 12 pounds sterling by 1703 for a scalp. Who would want to buy that? Gross. As a royal colony, Jamestown followed an English method of government, establishing a House of Burgess made of wealthy landowners, and in 1670 established voting rights that were conditional upon the ownership of property. This prevented free slaves, former indentured servants, and of course women, from participating in the discussions and development of policies and taxes assessed within the colony's borders. Many residents of Jamestown were dissatisfied with the royal government, complaining about excessive taxation and angered at paying stipends for the wealthy landowners serving in the House. For those living along the outer borders of the colony, this resentment was compounded by the view that the government was derelict in their duty to provide protection to its inhabitants. Frustrations began escalating in 1674 over how to deal with tribes along the frontier. Colonists who were unable to garner land along the eastern coast continued to push further west, breaking prior established treaties with local tribesmen. And as a result, the frontier borders would be consistently attacked by the tribes, who justifiably felt they were protecting their land rights. The colonial government, wanting to maintain their trading partnerships and avoid war, were hesitant to provide any forceful response to these attacks. This lack of any concrete action was interpreted by the colonists along the frontier as the government putting their families and land on the line as a buffer between the quote-unquote savage tribesmen and the richer, politically juiced-in landowners of the East. Seeking the retribution they felt the government failed to provide, the colonists committed unsanctioned attacks and raids on the surrounding areas, provoking more ill will and testing the already fragile relationship between the tribes and the colony. In a move seen to quell colonists' fears and avoid a potentially explosive confrontation, the General Assembly declared war on, quote, hostile Indians, end quote, in March of 1676. This declaration restricted trade to those deemed as friendly, chosen by Governor Berkeley, and was interpreted by many as an example of corruption by the colonial government. As tensions continued to increase, the colony seemed primed for an insurrection. That insurrection would come in the form of a young English planter by the name of Nathaniel Bacon. Marrying into political power, Bacon was cousin to the man who would become his political foe, the governor of Jamestown, William Berkeley. Nathaniel Bacon was born on January 2, 1647, in Suffolk, England, to an aristocratic family. He graduated from Cambridge University and married his wife Elizabeth shortly before venturing to the New World, landing in Virginia in 1674. Historians speculate Bacon's settlement in the colonies was as a result of escaping charges of attempting to con a neighbor out of his inheritance. So, going on the lam, Bacon, funded by his father, purchased 2 estates along the James River. The main plantation was about 40 miles above Jamestown, and the outer plantation was located in today's Richmond, Virginia. Shortly after his arrival, Bacon was elected to the House of Burgess, where he immediately demanded a strong stance against the local tribes, wanting authority to perform mass raids and clear the western frontier of any potential threats and provide for unlimited expansion. Bacon had lost an overseer to tribal attacks and was angered at the lackluster response provided by the government. Understanding the costs associated with launching a full-scale war with the Native Americans and wanting to maintain trading partnerships, Berkeley was adamantly opposed to any aggressive action against the surrounding tribes and quickly denied Bacon's request. Though dismissed on an official level, Bacon was undeterred and proceeded to raise an unofficial militia of 500 men and demanded a commission from the colony to move forward. At this, Berkeley declared Bacon a rebel and had him detained and removed from his council seat. Unfortunately, this move severely backfired as more than 2,000 men marched on Jamestown in support of Bacon and his cause. After apologizing to Berkeley, Bacon was released, where he continued to act with his unsanctioned militia to carry out raids against the neighboring tribes. Though deemed an outlaw, Bacon was re-elected to the Burgess from Henrico County. Bacon controlled a sizable army at this point, and the armed forces may have had a say in Bacon's election to the post. Talk about getting out the vote. Though he was successful in being elected, upon returning to Jamestown, he was again deemed an outlaw and again expelled from his seat. On July 30th, 1676, Bacon issued the Declaration in the Name of the People, criticizing the Berkeley administration for levying unfair taxes, playing favorites with political posts, and not providing adequate protection from the local tribes. The declaration specified 8 points of contention and charged the governor of going against the king's interest. The declaration, scathing in its rebuke of the political elite, named Berkeley and others, demanding they surrender within 4 days of publication. If those listed failed to surrender, the declaration called on the people to seize these individuals to be sent to the king for justice. Bacon conducted raids throughout the summer, leading his militia of mercenaries on a crusade to capture Governor Berkeley. While in pursuit, Bacon enslaved and murdered tribal members and captured traded goods. In response, Berkeley raised an army to fortify the colony and provide protection, successfully executing 2 of Bacon's men. The conflict came to a head on September 19, 1676, when Bacon and his army seized the State House and burned it and the surrounding area of Jamestown to the ground. Bacon's army was special due to its makeup, consisting not only of landowners, but indentured servants, slaves, and even women. While Jamestown burned to the ground, Bacon's forces raided at will, seizing neighboring farms and pillaging. Kind of ironic given their stated issues with the government, no? Once reports of the rebellion reached English shores, King Charles II issued a naval fleet sent to provide support and restore Berkeley to power and bring Bacon to justice. However, before the king's navy could arrive, Bacon died of dysentery on October 26, 1676. He was 29 years old. Without Bacon as the leader, the militia quickly collapsed, and Berkeley was once again able to take control of Jamestown. At their arrival in January 1677, the naval fleet found a town in repair and a rebellion defeated. Berkeley, offering leniency to those who turned themselves in, would go on to hang 23 rebels and seize their land. A new treaty between the colonists and the tribes was signed on May 29, 1677. But with Bacon's uprising, rebellious seeds had been planted and would continue to grow into a full-blown revolution less than a century later. And before I sign off on this week's episode, have you been enjoying Civics and Coffee? Do you have a topic, event, or person you'd like me to cover? Let me know. You can let me know on the Facebook page, Civics and Coffee, or on the Instagram page, Civics and Coffee, or shoot me an email, civicscoffeepod@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Civics and Coffee. If you want to hear more small snippets from American history, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to our next cup of coffee together.